Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about the Pentacon 6 medium format 6x6 SLR camera. This was produced around 1960, 66 I believe, and it continued to be made up until 1990, 91 or 92 depending on whatever website you go on. It ran off for quite a long time, and this is a camera that years ago I always fancied getting myself, but looking online I wasn't quite sure about the reviews. There's quite some different reviews about this camera. Some people love it, some people have loved it, and some people hate it, and some people now hate it because they pretty much prone to failing. Depends how they've been looked after really. This one was donated to the channel by my mate Sean, and Sean said, Roger, he went, it's too heavy for me. He said it does the wrists in. He said I'll send it to you, you can use it on the channel. I said wonderful, and this works flawlessly. I've tested it. I did have to do some reading up on it though to see not so much how to use it, but what are the general faults, just so I could check this camera over. And it is tip top, it's mint. There's the camera there on a tripod. I'm down at Newport Key. You can see all these beautiful boats in the background behind me. So I've got beautiful sunshine today, nothing going on in the skies. So I'm going to be getting some, you know, kind of no cloudy skies, sort of gradient skies maybe. I've just got my eye on this Jubilee store at this moment. This old building always reminds me of an old western town, that building. And there's the camera there all set up on my tripod. At the moment I've got the 80mm lens on. It's MC's multi-coated biometer lens, f2.8 DDR. I don't know what that means. Nice, about a 50mm equivalent on 35mm camera. And it's all set up ready to go. F16 1/25th of a second, so hopefully that won't let me down, because that's been giving people problems with these cameras, but I don't think I've got one here. I've pulled the pre-focused already. I used the, there it is there, the little tiny magnifier to get my focus in. You can just see, if I show you through the screen, that's what I'm looking at, square composition. Let's take the shot. It's got a beautiful mirror slap, but you can just sort of, it just sounds really muffled, you know, it doesn't sound too clangy, just sounds nice and muffled. What is it with us and film photography? We love a mirror slap, don't we? So the camera itself is fully mechanical. There's no batteries or anything like that. It's totally mechanical. It's photography DIY. And it's pretty simple. You've got a timer on the front. There's your fire button. There's your advance there for your film. There's the shutter speed dial. Goes from bulb 1 second all the way to 1,000th of a second. You've got the little common film reminder there to tell you if you're shooting coloured, daylight or whatever, black and white. Does nothing other than just remind you. And a couple of lugs there for a strap. Underneath you've got your tripod plate and a flash sync as well. And I'm not sure what the standard prism this came with. This is a waist level viewfinder where you look down normally on this one. And it's also got various ones as well. There's one with a meter on it that you can get, a prism. I've also got a prism without a meter, so I can literally just plonk it on there and have a look through. The camera looks quite bulky when that's on there, but I've tried that, and it does start to get quite heavy. It's quite tricky holding, not tricky, but I suppose it's a case of getting used to it. But with the fire button kind of pointing upwards, it's a bit fiddly. My fingers keep touching the timer, so I've got to get used to that. But it is quite heavy still with this lens on, but nowhere near as heavy as the other lens, which I'll show you in a bit. And again, when you advance the camera, like I said, just nice and easy, and bring it back slowly, and you should never break the camera apparently. Yeah, it is a bit fiddly. My fingers seem to want to touch that timer, but it ain't too bad. Nice reflections coming off that water there. And another thing when I'm using the prism is it's like an SLR camera, everything's normal. When you put the waist level viewfinder on, it's back to front, you know, but through here it corrects itself. So what I see is exactly what I'm getting through the viewfinder. And I've also got one here which is quite nice for looking down. That actually turns into a nice loop for looking at your negatives. So twice the fun with that one, but they come off really easily. You've got a little tiny button there and it just pops off, and there's your ground glass. And you've got a little tiny switch at the back there, you flip and it pops up. Inside there you've got this little tiny loop as well that you pull down and you can look through to really sort of get your focus in. And also if you flip this one up here, you've got a sports finder as well. There's a little thing at the back that you pop up Not that this is really a sports sort of camera, but you've got this sports finder as well that you can quickly use. I don't think I'll ever use that. So when I started reading about this camera, I did have to do some reading just because I know that it's got its problems. And one of the problems is frame slipping, or overlapping. So if you're not careful when you load this camera, there's a chance that when you develop your film, some of the frames have overlapped. And that's quite easy to get around if you do the right thing. It's just a matter of loading the film correctly. I believe the very earlier models were prone to this, and they ended up putting little tiny teeth on the take-up roller, which actually catches on the film. And when you develop your film, you can see those teeth marks in the film. I've actually seen it with my own eyes, I tell you. It's pretty easy to load. Once you've got your film inside, pull it over, put it through the take-up spool, and then make sure that it's nice and tight and taut. And you just keep keeping your finger or your thumb on the back of the film as you start advancing. So you advance once, and then what you need to do is ratchet forward until your arrow gets to the little tiny white dot inside the camera. And then once that's done, you can close the back. If you're happy that the film is dead flat in there, nice and tight, you can close the back and then advance 4 times, and then you're ready to take your first shot. One of the first films that I did with this, I actually got 13 frames out of it. The second one, I did 12 frames. So I've still got a little bit of getting used to it if I want to get an extra frame. But I've got a film in here at the moment, which I'm going to be going out tomorrow and taking photographs of. You guys have already seen that already because I'm kind of like going into the future with this video. Similar shot to the last one. This is quite a nice little tool to use. There's no flare coming from that sun over there onto my screen in here. My eye covers the whole cup. Let's take this shot. F16 1/25 still. Done. And another thing that I read up about, this is actually in the manual as well, when you advance a film, you let the advance crank there, whatever it's called, the advance lever, you pull it back slowly, so don't let it snap back. If it snaps back, I think it just messes the mechanics up inside. I don't know why, but it just, you just got to treat this like it's a baby, you just got to treat it very delicately. So I've now changed over to the 180mm lens, this Sonar lens. Let's change the lens. Look at that bad boy. And back on the waist level viewfinder as well. Let's see what we can get with this. So I must admit, I don't often use a telephoto lens, but I'll be interested to see what we get here. Over there, I've got that old barge or that old boat there, and a little red car and another boat on top, and a little reflection in the water. So I'll take the shot. I'm still at the same F16 1/25 of a second. Nothing's going to change. The only thing is, I'm not sure if I should calculate a slight extension for the lens. I'm not 100% sure, so that's something I'll have to find out when I'm using this lens and camera. And someone else said to me about the shutter speeds. I think they said you can only change the shutter speeds once you've advanced, or change the shutter speeds before you've advanced, one or the two. But the manual doesn't say anything about that. It says that you can change shutter speeds if you have advanced or if you're not advanced. So you can just change shutter speeds willy-nilly. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I've been doing, no problem so far. But that's the only two problems, other than storage. If these things have been kept in storage for a long time, I believe that the 1/25 speed on the shutter, that's prone to just getting slow, where the lubricants inside the camera have just gummed up over the years and got a little bit sticky or tacky. So Shaw must have used this over some time because all the speeds are working correctly. So I've got a really good mint what's it called? Pentagon 6 TL camera. In fact, let's take the cap off for this shot. So now I'm using the eye-level viewfinder. I've got the big beast on, and I've gone handheld. Man, this is really heavy now in my hands. This is really heavy. I don't want to shoot at 1/25 of a second though, because I'm a little bit concerned about any shake. So I'm going to go to 2/50th of a second, come down to F11, advance the camera. This is lump. But it's a lot better than sitting on a tripod. I can literally look around. I'm not sure this would be a fast sort of lens for wildlife and stuff. And of course, being square format, I don't have to do all this. I'm just at the same angle with the camera all the time. Changes a lot as well. Where I'm so used to wide, I'm now having to think differently in my composition because it's being a telephoto lens, everything's closer. To take the lens off, you've got a collar there, right on attached to the camera, so you just twist that towards the advance lever and pull the lens off. I've got another lens to show you, which is an absolute lump. Look at this 180mm lens that Sean also gave me. I'll put that on the camera now so you can see the size of it, and then I'll put the other prism on as well because it then starts getting really heavy. So I'll attach this lens, on it goes. Bosh, look at that. Now that's starting to get heavy. Now if I was to put the prism on, so I'll be seeing through the like a normal camera. Look at the size of that. It is a lump. It's got to be way over a kilogram, maybe a couple of kilograms. So knowing that this camera is 6x6 square negatives, all my compositions I'm thinking in my mind for a square print, and that's what I'm doing. Every time I'm taking a photograph, I'm imagining what this picture or whatever composition I've got looks like on paper, would look like on paper and in a frame as well, obviously black and white. So at the moment I'm looking at this hook that's coming up. You can see this hook. I'm going to take a picture of that now with that long lens on, and just try and imagine what that would look like in a print at home. So whatever composition, whatever angle I decide to choose for it. So through the viewfinder I can see to my bottom left those wires coming down, and I'm kind of composing that hook so it's just off center. I think that might make a nice composition, as if what I'm seeing is what I get. Done. I'll tell you what, you can't be too long holding this up, my elbow's starting to ache. Now one thing that threw me when I first started using this camera was when I changed the aperture to say I closed it down to f8.11.16, it was getting darker inside, and although it looks like there's a little tiny depth of field or stop down lever there where I can get a depth of field preview, it wasn't happening, nothing was happening. I thought, well, maybe it's broken or something. I couldn't figure it out. It was a bit of a pain trying to take photographs at f8, f11, f16 because things were going dark in there and I couldn't see. Normally these lenses, you put it on the camera and it's got a stop down feature inside, little tiny pin on the back of the lens, which this has, makes contact with the camera, and you can focus all the way through wide open aperture at 2.8. As soon as you take the photograph, the aperture closes down, the shutter releases, you get your picture. But this one didn't seem to do it. However, I had a little look inside the camera, and I could see the little tiny pin inside the camera was in an up position, which was really strange. All I did is just pulled it down, and then I found my contact for the lenses. So this lens goes all the way from 2.8 to f32. So I can shoot this at f32 in the daytime, and it will be very bright. It will be wide open as I'm taking my shots. So I'm turning it to f32 now, and nothing changes. It will change as soon as I press the fire button. The aperture will close, the shutter will fire, and then Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. There's flags on that boat there, see them? I'm back on with the 80mm lens. I've got the downward viewfinder there. What is it called? Taking a shot of these barrels. So this is quite exciting for me because, as you know, behind me I've got those Zeiss icons that are 6x6. I've got pinhole cameras 6x6, a Holga which is 6x6, but nothing where I can change the lenses such as this camera. And these lenses are absolutely tack sharp. I've tried both of them. So I've got lots of playing with that lens to find out how the bokeh works, and this one as well. Maybe take it into the woods and do some sort of sun through trees and try and stuff like that, and some portraits. The only thing I did do the other day was took some portraits on it, and I seem to have messed up my composition. I had too much headroom. I don't know why that is, but something for me to get used to. I'll show you the rest of what I'm doing tomorrow, God willing, and we'll get in the dark room, we'll make a print and see how they come out. And when the camera came, there was also a peg in the bag. I don't know why. So like all my cameras, I'll give them a name. I'm going to call this one Peggy. I'm going to do some pegging with Peggy. Okay, so I'm on shot number 11. So I should have 2 more frames to shoot. 2/50 of a second, f11 over there, then boats, a little bit of reflection in the water. So I just took the last shot on the side of that boat there, and this is the interesting thing. As soon as it gets to frame number 12, it locks. You can't go any forward any further. So if you was using a 220 film in this camera, which it also takes, you'd need to unlock it to carry on with the next 12 frames. It's a little tiny lever on the side there. So if I do that, now I can advance initially to frame number 13. Am I lucky? Will I get an extra frame out of it? Let's find out. I'm going to change lenses to the long lens because I've just seen a composition. It's just a piece of rope on the boat. Damn, this is awkward, this camera with this lens, I must admit. It is pretty awkward. I don't want to drop the camera in the water. So lucky 13, I might have got an extra frame out of it. So you guys, I've showed you all about the camera, I've showed you shooting the camera as well, I've showed you some of the scans. I've developed the film, we'll get in the darkroom and we'll see any of them worth printing. So I'm back home now, just going to advance the rest of the film back onto the take-up spool. You will know it's on there because this goes loose. There you go, it's gone loose. So open the back of the camera, take our film out. You pull these little springs at the bottom. They pop out, hopefully, if I've done everything right. I'll have no spacing issues. And no strange shutter speed stuff going on. Let's develop it. So I'm shooting an expired 2009 Agfa APX 100 film, the original APX, and the development I'm using is D23. Very easy to make, and it's just two chemicals, sodium sulfite and also metol as well, powder form. So all I use is 7.5 grams of metol and 100 grams of this sodium sulfite in 1 litre stock, and that gives me my D23, which is already mixed in here. And I'm going to be using my rotary processor to process this film. So all I need is 100 millilitres of water and 100 millilitres of D23 to make 1 part to 1 part. So that's going to go now for 8 minutes. I'm in the kitchen, so my wife's out. She won't be back till later, so hopefully by the time she gets back, this will be back in the cupboard and she won't even know I've been in the kitchen. Don't tell her. Cup of tea, dear, and all that stuff. But this is the rotary processor that I'm using, so this will go on for 8 minutes. I've only used 200 millilitres of soup in that tank for the 120 film. So 100 millilitres of developer, 100 millilitres of water, and that will go for 8 minutes. I've been trying to test all my films out, and I've really enjoyed using this process over the time that I've had this rotary processor, and I find that I'm getting a lot of consistent results now, as opposed to inverting and agitating. So like I say, I've written the times down for my films that I shoot. This one is 8 minutes, and then once that's done, I'll wash the film with, or give it a good rinse out with water, and then I'll fix the film as well. I'm not using stop bath as much these days, only in the darkroom for my prints. Goes the fixer, and the same again, this time just for 5 minutes on the rotary processor. And this is the fixer that I've been using lately. This is Zone Imaging's Eco Zone Fix. It's an odorless alkaline rapid fixer. This stuff works fast and it lasts ages. Inside is got the instructions and a couple of parts there to mix yourself, part A, part B. Once you've bottled it and made 1 litre solution, this lasts absolutely ages. Depends obviously how many films you shoot. It just seems to go on and on. So the development's all done, time for the truth. Hopefully I've got no spacing issues, no light leaks, and we look good. Negatives look good as well. Let's get these pegged, and then we'll let them dry and see how they look. I managed to get 13 shots out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 shots. Wow, that's awesome. So these are the negatives, and you can see they're quite thin, but I'm not going to blame the camera. I'm going to blame my development. Not times, but I reckon that I was coming to the end, just a little bit left in my bottle of D23. So I reckon that's just lost a bit of potency because I've used this film. I'm not blaming the film either, even though it's expired in 2009. I've used this film same time, same developer, and they've come out lovely. So, and I shot this at 100, by the way, box speed. Interesting for an expired film. So we get a negative inside the carrier, and I've got a carrier here that gives me a slight edge on the rebate, so that will come out a little thin black line around the edge of the print, which also looks nice on square formats that I find. The only tricky thing is, because this is sky, I've got to be very careful with dust and stuff and hairs, but you know, just got to be careful. So with the enlarger light on, you can see that I've got the negative on the baseboard there projected, and it's covering an area of around about 8.5 inches print. You can just see the rebate around the edge. I think that will finish that off nicely. Hopefully I can nail this sky. Let's see what happens. So we turn the safe lights on, and I'm going to do some test strips. I won't go through the whole process with you. I'll just briefly show you as I'm going along what I'm up to. Red lights are on, safe lights on. Using a 2.5 grade filter. Bring that aperture down. It's quite bright there. And I'll put my test strip right across the horizon onto the sky and the boats in the background. That should give me a good idea where I am. I don't like to waste paper by trying to get a print looking, you know, it's nice to get it the best you can, but sometimes if you're fighting a losing battle, the best time is when the negs just print perfectly straight off a 2.5 grade filter, or if you need to do a little bit of split grading. But when you start dodging burning like I was there, it's because the neg's got a bit of a problem, which we know it has. So after doing some test prints with this and the 2.5 grade filter, you could see I had nothing to play with on the 2.5 grade. The negative is just too flat, really, less contrast than I liked it to have been. So I ended up going straight to a contrast 0 and 5, tried to do some split grading, that wasn't happening, so I ended up just putting a contrast 5 filter in. That's going to build up the contrast and leave the whites behind slightly. So I just did 5 seconds overall, and then gradient the sky in for another 5 seconds, gradient the sea in at the bottom here for another 5 seconds, which is why you can see I've got this nice dark looking end of, or the bottom of the print is quite dark looking. And then for another 10 seconds I used a little hole in my card there with the contrast 5 and just went along and started burning up all the boats and making them pop, and I'm quite happy with the way that's come out. The only thing is I've got a slight trapped hair on the negative right there. It's not trapped in the neg, must have fallen in there when I put it in the enlarger. So I did a couple more prints in the dark room. This was the Jubilee stores. This one actually came out okay, and this was the rope that I liked. I shot on the 180 lens. I think I'm going to call that one black water against white rope. I just couldn't, there's slight detail in the ripples there, but I just couldn't get much out of it. And to be honest with you, it's not worth wasting paper trying to get these right when I can easily go back and get these again. So my eggs are hanging up over there to dry. I'll keep those for reference and put my test strips with them, put some notes down, exactly what they were, where I was, what went wrong, and that's for another time. But I'm definitely going to mix up some fresh D23 for myself for next time. Probably go out and shoot some fresh Ilford Delta 100. That would be beautiful. Wait for a few clouds as well. I think a few clouds would have definitely done them photographs justice. But what a camera. Massive thanks to Sean for sending me it. Sean, mate, thanks very much. I don't know if you're watching, you probably are. Thanks a lot for sending me that camera, mate. It's absolutely brilliant, and I'm looking forward to going forward and seeing what else I can do with it. It's all a case of getting used to something, especially the framing and what have you, and the weight and the lenses. It's like they say, you know, the best camera is the one that you use all the time, so you just have to get used to a particular camera. So I'm looking forward to using that in the future and doing more shoots with that. You'll probably see it more and more on the channel. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I won't have any problems. And there's also a website if you're interested in the Pentacon 6, a brilliant website I found called Pentacon 6. Pentacon6.com. That's the website. It's a proper old-fashioned website. It's like 2005. I don't think it's been changed apart from the from the text and stuff along the years. But he's got loads of information. He's also got a few YouTube channels as well, and he also has got a video where he tests out the spacing by putting the camera in, putting a roll of film inside, sticking it in bold mode, and using a magic mark around the edge, marking each number. So when he pulls the film out of the camera, he can see on the film itself exactly if there's any spacing issues. I did exactly the same thing, but I didn't use a fresh roll of film. I just used backing paper from the film that I'd already shot, rolled it up, put it in the camera, and did the same thing. It came out okay, fine. So I'm really pleased that that camera hasn't got any problems. Guys, let us know in the comments if any of you have got a Pentacon 6. If you've had one, if you've got rid of one, if you liked it, if you loved it, I don't know. Just let us know in the comments if you have used or have or are using a Pentacon 6. I'd love to know, and I'm sure other people would as well. Massive thanks to the supporters of the channel, and a massive thanks to the people that subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate it. Without you guys, I wouldn't be making content like this on a regular basis. So big up to you guys. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great weekend. Be safe. I'll catch you next time when I'm playing with Peggy. Right, Abby D? Look at that bad boy.